Ever feel like you're kind of stuck on autopilot? Life's just happening to you and you're just along for the ride.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Well, today's deep dive is going to give us some serious tools to shake things up. We're diving into Neville Goddard's The Power of Awareness.
It's a powerful one.
It really is. I mean, this book, it throws open the doors to some radically empowering ideas about what we're truly capable of.
Absolutely. And it all starts with this bold statement. I love this.
Hmm.
We aren't just passengers in our own lives. We are the drivers.
Right.
Goddard, he argues that our consciousness, that I am at our core, is the ultimate creator of our experience.
Okay, I have to admit, when I first read that, I thought, whoa, that's a big one. It sounds a little out there. But then I came across this analogy he uses about pieces of steel.
Oh, yeah, I like this one.
Imagine like each piece of steel can be magnetized or demagnetized. That doesn't change the steel itself, right?
Right.
Just how its molecules are arranged.
It changes its properties.
Exactly. And Goddard says it's the same with us. We're all part of one consciousness, but it's how we arrange our individual consciousness that determines our individual reality.
Exactly.
That stuck feeling so many of us get, it's like we've accidentally magnetized ourselves in a way that keeps attracting more of the same old pattern.
Yeah, more of the same.
But the good news is, if we can accidentally magnetize ourselves in a not so great way, we can consciously choose to rearrange things.
Totally. And that's where our assumptions come in. This is key because Goddard says it's not just wishful thinking. It's about those deep-seated beliefs that we hold about ourselves, about the world. The stuff, honestly, we often don't even realize is running the show behind the scenes.
Well, totally.
And he tells this great story about a costume designer who was convinced her boss was impossible. Just impossible to work with, arguments, tension, just the worst.
Oh, I know the one.
And then she discovers Goddard's teachings and decides, okay, I'm going to experiment with this.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on all the ways this boss is making her life difficult, she starts actively imagining him being supportive and appreciative of her work.
Hold on. So she basically decided to give her thoughts a makeover about him and hope for the best.
Not just like a surface level, oh, I hope he's nicer tomorrow. She really dove in. She starts having these inner dialogues with herself where she's rehearsing him, complimenting her designs, imagining him smiling, thanking her for her hard work. It got to the point where these positive interactions felt real to her, even though nothing had outwardly changed yet.
So she basically got really good at faking it till she made it, at least in her own mind. But how did that actually change anything in the real world?
That's the really fascinating part. As her assumptions about her boss shifted, his behavior actually started to shift too.
Wow.
He became noticeably kinder, more encouraging, started praising her work. It's like her changed perception somehow rippled out and reshaped their whole dynamic.
Wow, that's wild. That's what's so mind-blowing about this. If we can actually change our reality just by changing our assumptions, what else can we do?
That's the question. And Goddard, he doesn't leave us hanging. He actually gives us this framework, a set of tools for how to consciously put this power into action.
Okay, so how do we do it?
He calls it the law of assumption.
Okay.
And it all comes down to three key elements: desire, imagination, and focused attention.
So it's not enough to just kind of vaguely wish for something. We need to get really clear about what we want, imagine it like it's actually happening, and then give it our full attention.
Yes, it's like setting an intention, but with rocket fuel.
Okay.
Goddard, he draws this fascinating parallel to a principle in physics.
Okay.
It's called the principle of least action. Basically, it says that nature always takes the path of least resistance. It uses the minimum amount of energy to achieve a specific outcome.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. Physics is not my strong suit. Can you break that down a little?
Of course. Imagine a stream, right? It's flowing down a mountainside. It doesn't smash through every rock in its path.
Right.
It flows around obstacles, finding the easiest route.
Yeah, it finds the path of least resistance.
Exactly. And Goddard is suggesting that our focused intention can work in a similar way. When we are super clear about what we want and we align our thoughts, our feelings, even our actions with that outcome, it's like we're creating a channel for it to manifest with the least amount of resistance.
So it's like we become that effortless flow guided by our desire and fueled by our belief in it.
Yes.
Yep.
And Goddard illustrates this with a story about a soldier who really wanted to be discharged from the army.
Oh, yeah, I remember this one. He was stuck overseas, but all he wanted was to be back home in his New York City apartment.
Right, and he decides to harness the power of his imagination. So every night, just before falling asleep, he would vividly imagine himself back in his apartment. He'd picture himself walking from room to room, touching familiar objects, even looking out his window at the street below.
And it's not just that he was picturing it, he was really immersing himself in the feeling of being home. He engaged all his senses to make it so real in his mind that it eventually became his reality.
Exactly. And the amazing thing is, after doing this for just a few days, he received an honorable discharge out of the blue. It's like this powerful example of how when we align our imagination and our emotions with our desires, we can create these incredible results.
So we've got desire, we've got imagination. But Goddard also talks about the importance of embodying the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It's not enough to just visualize it. We have to really step into that feeling as if it's already happened.
You got it. He uses another great example to illustrate this point. It's a story about a businessman who dreamed of acquiring a particular company for his family.
This is where it gets tricky for me,
Yeah.
because it's one thing to imagine something really vividly,
Right.
but to actually feel like it's already mine, especially when my current reality is so different, that's a whole other level.
You're hitting on exactly what Goddard knew was the challenge. Like, he knew this wasn't always easy to put into practice.
Right.
In fact, there's a whole chapter dedicated to why people fail to manifest their desires.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the biggest stumbling block? What trips people up?
He's very clear on this point.
Okay.
It all comes down to the biggest reason people fail is that they can't make the assumption feel natural.
Okay.
He compares it to trying to run while you're chained to a bench.
Oh, okay.
No matter how hard we try to convince ourselves that we can do it,
Right.
that feeling of being bound, it holds us back.
So it's our limiting beliefs, those doubts, those insecurities that are like chains that prevent our assumptions from really taking root and growing.
Yes, exactly. And think about it. Our beliefs, especially those deep-seated ones,
Yeah.
they often stem from past experiences, right?
Right.
Or societal conditioning. They create a kind of resistance that makes it hard to fully embrace that feeling of, I already have it.
So how do we break free from those chains, from those self-imposed limitations? We all have them to some extent, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Goddard, he reminds us about the power of our imagination.
Okay.
And he uses the example of this young boy who desperately wants a collie,
Okay.
but his parents are totally against it.
Oh, no.
Right. No, absolutely not. But the boy, he refuses to give up on this dream.
Oh, I love that.
Right. So instead of focusing on the obstacles, he just focuses on the joy of having this dog.
He's imagining playing with it and
Yes, he's imagining playing fetch, cuddling with this collie. He makes the experience so real, so natural, so believable in his mind that it actually becomes his reality.
What?
He ends up winning a collie in a citywide contest.
No way. That's amazing.
Right. So it's just this perfect example of how our imagination can really pave the way for things to manifest.
But I imagine persistence plays a big role in this too. We can't just visualize it once and then expect it to just fall into our lap, right?
Absolutely. Goddard actually compares persistent assumption to the parable of that persistent friend. You know that story from the Bible?
Yes, the one who goes and knocks on his friend's door at midnight because he needs some bread.
Yes. The friend is like, dude, it's midnight. I'm in bed.
Not a good time.
But because of the guy's persistence, he eventually gives in. And Goddard's point is, our desires respond the same way to unwavering assumption.
Okay.
He talks about this other story, another powerful story of this terminally ill man who ends up making a complete recovery.
Wow. What was his secret?
This man, he just clung fiercely to this image
Yeah.
of his doctor being amazed by his healing. So he would visualize it. He would feel that amazement. He would declare his healing as if it was already done.
Wow.
And eventually, it was. And the point of the story is, this man's unwavering belief, that refusal to give up on the outcome that he wanted.
Right. That's what Goddard's emphasizing.
Yes.
It's so clear that he really emphasizes this persistence, this idea of not giving up on what we want, even when things seem impossible or, we face challenges and setbacks and all of that.
He does, and it all leads up to this final, incredibly empowering message, which is that we are all destined for greatness.
Yes. And not greatness in the traditional sense necessarily, like fame and fortune, but the greatness of becoming conscious creators of our own lives.
That's it. Goddard reminds us that our true destiny is to actually harness the power of our awareness, to break free from those limitations, those past conditionings, and really step into those limitless possibilities that already exist within us.
It's such a powerful message to end on. And it makes me think, if you truly believed without a shadow of a doubt that you are the creator of your reality and you are listening, so you are, what seemingly impossible dream would you dare to bring to life? What would happen if you stopped simply wishing and started assuming it was already yours? Just something to think about as we wrap up our deep dive into the power of awareness. Thanks for joining us.